Hi guys, welcome to M&E Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. I'm so glad that you've joined me today. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do well to subscribe to this channel because on a regular basis, I post updates in relation to M&E. Today, we're going to be looking at how is the M&E plan implemented. This is the last video in the series of videos I had posted on M&E planning. Okay, but before I go any further, if you are here for the very first time, my name is Coach Alexander. I've been doing this for 10 years now. I enjoy every bit of it. I want you to be part of this channel, so please subscribe because all the time I'm posting at least every week. There's something I want to talk about though. It's the 6-month coaching program, and a lot of you have been writing to me asking about this program. I've decided in a few days' time to talk about what this coaching program is. So we're going to spend maybe 10 to 20 minutes. I'm going to explain to you what this coaching program is. A lot of people have benefited from this program. It talks about M&E. We do SPSS. We do advanced statistics. So believe you me, if you enroll in this, it will be the best thing you've ever done in your life in terms of M&E. I have these free ebooks. The link is in the description. If the link is not in the description, you can always write to me. I can send you the link. There is this Udemy course. Please enroll in it. It's one of my best courses. And of course, this is a long video, but of course, again, we have the timestamps. So make good use of the timestamps because the timestamps are meant to make your life easier. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, so now the implementation of the M&E plan is where the real things happen, the activities happen. You've documented what you want to see in your M&E system, okay? Of course, it comes out in a plan, but the M&E system is also something slightly different. But in the M&E plan, as you can see there's the contents, which gives you everything, all the components of the plan, okay, that you'd want to implement. So you give a bit of a background and you give the purpose, the overview of the project, and the M&E framework, data flow evaluation, and so on and so forth. So now, when you are implementing this plan, the key is it all begins from you understanding what is in the framework. Okay, that's the easiest way to begin. You simply need to understand what does the framework say, what does the framework matrix say. So the reason why you do that is in the framework it gives you all the indicators, all right, and then it also gives you a brief definition, and also one of the most important things about it, it also showcases who is responsible and how often do we collect this data, because I have to tell you this, that everything we do is dependent on the data, and it ends there. That's the starting point and that's the ending point. It's the data. We need this data in order to do to make our decisions, in order to measure whether we are really achieving things or not. So after you've reviewed all this, the next stage is the development of data collection tools. All right. So the tools are the actual instruments you use to collect this data. Remember, the data is dependent on these indicators. This is just an example of a poverty reduction project. So there are these indicators. So you need to understand what you're collecting, how you're going to collect it, and when. This matrix gives you that information. So after you've developed the tools, okay, maybe I just have to say the process of actually developing these tools is listed there. So the first thing is you have to review the indicators which I've showed you in the matrix. Then the second thing is for you to ask yourself, for each of these indicators, what data collection method will be used. There are different types of methods that are used to collect data. You've got focus group discussion, you've got observations, you've got survey, and so on. So you need to ask yourself that question. And then you need to also ask yourself this kind of indicator, what type of indicator is it? Is it a qualitative indicator? Is it a quantitative indicator? The reason why you ask this question is because the the quantitative indicators will tell you that, okay, since this is quantitative, you obviously align it to a method which is more quantitative focused, such as surveys. Okay. But if it's a qualitative indicator, usually qualitative indicators require you to measure issues of attitudes, perceptions. So when you're doing that, the methods you use are more aligned to issues to do with focus group discussions. And the reason being is that when you ask questions, they are usually open-ended questions you're asking. And these are the answers that they'll give you will be also open-ended. So that's why you need to ask these questions. So when you determine the type of indicator, it will help you establish what kind of method you use to collect, and it may help you also have an idea of what you are going to be facing in future. So based on the preceding questions, you now develop the tools, all right, the data collection tools. So if you're going to use a survey to collect this data, obviously the tools you use are the questionnaires. But if you're going to be doing focus group discussions, the tools that you develop will be obviously an interviews guide or a focus group discussion guide. All right. So you find out that these tools are pretty much dependent on the questions you ask here. So after you've developed the tools, you test the tools. So you as the developer has to test the tool to see whether it is answering all the questions that are up there. Then after you test the tools, if the tools have passed your test, you have to train your staff. So training the staff will require you that you bring your staff together, you orient them on the use of the tool, you give them the opportunity to ask questions. You also correct where need be. You can do you can do some corrections if some staff bring to your attention what is lacking in the tool. So you can do corrections there and then. Then the most important step is the pilot testing of the tools. So you use these trained staff, you ask them to actually go in the field to interview just a small number of individuals. And then based on the data, you can be able to establish whether the tool fulfilled its intended purpose or not. If it didn't fulfill its intended purpose, then you need to make corrections. And then after you've made the corrections and after you've improved the tool, you actually launch the tool. There's something I need to tell you about the implementation of the M&E plan. It's really important that you have indicator reference sheets. Indicator reference sheets show you or explain to you what each of the indicators actually mean. Okay, so I've given an example of an indicator reference sheet, but it hasn't been populated. This is more like a template. There are templates all over the internet that explain the indicator reference sheets. So once you have these indicator reference sheets, it is also part of the implementation because these sheets will help you make sure that whatever you're collecting is of high quality. Okay, you're collecting high quality data because high quality data is what we really need when it comes to effective decision making. So the implementation cycle in the monitoring and evaluation, when you're implementing the plan, you're basically monitoring and evaluating. That is the implementation cycle. So the cycle begins at this stage, the baseline. So the baseline, when your project has been approved, the first step you do is a baseline because you want to establish what is the current situation. Others may argue that there may not be any need to do a baseline because all the indicators are at zero. Okay, but it's not always the case. It really depends on the indicator that you're using. Usually, indicators that have to do with number of trainings conducted, yes, those are zero value indicators at the start of the project. But there are certain indicators that may not be at zero value, such as attitudes, perceptions of people at that time, or income levels of people at a certain time, poverty levels at a certain time. It may not be at zero. Okay, so that's why you need to do a baseline. So the baseline is usually conducted by an independent person, but there is really no harm in doing it yourself as an organization because the issue of biasness doesn't come into play at that point. So after you've done the baseline, you undertake monitoring activities. This is where now your organization is going to be monitoring the activities. How are they doing in terms of their targets? Are they achieving their targets? Usually, the monitoring is done at the lower level indicators. We're talking of the activities, the inputs, and the outputs. But when we come to the midterm evaluation, this is an evaluation that is done midway through the project implementation timeframe. So the midterm evaluation is done usually to measure the the results achieved at the higher level indicators such as the outcome and impact. This evaluation, as because it's done midway, it gives you a head start kind of in knowing exactly how you are doing so far, so that by the time you do the end of project evaluation, you would have already corrected the challenges that were raised at the midterm evaluation stage. So this is very important, especially for long-term projects that are maybe 4 or 5 years. You can do it for a 3-year project, but I think if your project is 5 years, you need a midterm evaluation. After the midterm evaluation is done, you do the monitoring business as usual until you reach the end of project evaluation. The end of project evaluation is similar to the midterm evaluation. Same methodology, probably the same consultants that you used to do it. So now, if you've noticed, the end of project evaluation and baseline, they are together, all right? What some organizations have done is that they'll use the end of project evaluation as a baseline for the next implementation phase of the project. So you've got projects that have different, a number of phases. So they'll use the end of evaluation for the previous phase as a baseline for the new phase, and then business as usual. Okay, so that is in a nutshell how you implement monitoring and evaluation, how you implement the plan. So if you have any questions, you can write to me. I can answer some of your questions, or most of the time I answer 100% of the questions. But please write to me. If I don't see your email, please don't get discouraged. Sometimes I get a lot of emails, but I really want to help you progress in the implementation of M&E in your organization. Until we meet again, I've been your host, Coach Alexander, and see you on the other side. Bye.